You're listening to the Known Legacy Podcast, brought to you by Known Legacy Ministries. For more information, go to knownlegacy.org. Now here's your hosts, Bill and Travis.
Top of the morning to everyone today.
How you doing, man?
Doing better than you, man. How are you doing?
I'm not all right. I'm broken inside. Broken inside. Our host, our guest is already laughing. Guys, we're so glad to have you here today. We want to introduce to you a #1 recording artist who now is on his own, was the lead singer of Sanctus for 20 years, I believe.
Okay, so before you go any further.
Yes, I'll stop.
Is it okay, I've had many an argument. I used to be a youth minister when you guys were hot and like all the girls were.
Wait a minute, he's still hot. Have you seen his picture?
But when the band, so we used to have entire evenings arguing about, is it Sanctus Real or is it Sanctus Real? And so Matt, you're the man, you're the myth, the legend. Which one is it?
Wait, first, let's give it up for Matt Hammitt really quick.
Let's go.
We're already so excited. Give it up for Matt Hammitt, everybody, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you know what, man? Honestly, I hate to break it to those folks who, thought it was real. It's really our fault because we mixed pretty much an English word that could be Latin with a Latin word that sounded like English. So it was like it was an argument waiting to happen. And so,
well, we had it. You're welcome.
It was Sanctus Real. It was Sanctus Real.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, now we know.
Or is Sanctus Real. They're still going.
Yes, they are. And doing great.
And I feel like I lost that battle a long time ago because I was a passionate Real man. And it might have been Madrid Real. I was into soccer at the time. Still am. But anyways. We'll talk about that another time.
Awesome. That's
Matt,
awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you making it happen. Everyone who's watching on Facebook, thank you guys for checking us out on a typically not day that we podcast.
Yeah, we don't normally podcast on a Friday.
No, Friday's normally a relaxed day. So thanks for checking us out and for being with us. So anyways, Bill, go for it.
Yeah, so we, Matt, share a little bit about your story. I mean, some people may know who you are, but just for the sake of those who are listening, share a little about who you are, where you're from, kind of your past and where you are now. I know that's hard in a few minutes, but give it a shot. See if you can make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 16 years old, I started the band Sanctus Real with my friends, and never imagined that we would go on to be a band for the three of us together for 20 years. We graduated high school. We started getting record deal offers, and so we had to make the decision: do we go to college, do we go to on the road? so basically, we chose that we should probably take the record deal offers while we could, and if we needed to go back to college, we would. But the crazy thing is that in 2001, not only did I sign a record deal with my buddies, but also got married, and so. Oof. This kind of defines my life story. It's this husband, becoming a father, having family dreams, but also on this parallel timeline of being somebody chasing career dreams. And I'm not alone, in those tensions. Those are tensions that everybody faces. But I definitely, the thing I think that makes what I was going through a bit more interesting to people is that I wrote a song along that journey called Lead Me. Yeah. That is a huge irony in my life because it was the song about being a husband and a father and being more present at home that catapulted my career into like the heights of everything we had wanted. And the irony is that, this song about being a more present husband and father was actually the thing that ended up taking me even further away from home.
Wow.
And so and then, kind of led into accelerated tensions. With all that. And ultimately, I think that song was a huge piece. Hearing crowds sing it back to me every single night. That ultimately led me to see that, or feel that God was calling me to stop singing it so much and live it more. And so in 2016, I played my last concert with Sanctus Real and passed the mic to a new lead singer leaving everything I had known, having no clue what would come next for me and my wife.
No, it's powerful. I mean, even when I was reading your book, which if you get a chance, you guys check out Matt's book. It's called Lead Me. And but listening to that story of how convicting that was, and it was funny because I think when we talked a few years ago, you had mentioned, I wrote this song and it actually drew me farther away from my family. And that's one of the questions we really have today is there's all these guys who have dreams and desires and want to do great things, but they're really not leading their family.
Right.
And I think a lot of them struggle with, where do I start? Like, where do I start with this? Because again, sometimes I feel like it's kind of like the Titanic. Like, I knew the Titanic sank. Like, I read your book. I know you guys are doing okay. You know what I'm saying? Like the ending. But so many of these guys have no idea where to start and if it will be successful.
Right.
And so I'd love to get some of your wisdom to just hear, where do you start? When, let's say, okay, let's start with one group. There's a bunch of guys who have never led their family, whether they're new believers or they've been in the church for a long time, and they're like, I don't know how to even do this. Where would you tell them to start in their journey?
Yeah. Well, I think, there's one lesson I learned early on that's carried with me that is for guys who haven't taken the steps to lead and for guys who have been leading. I think the thing for me was, first I'll share a little quote by Henry Cloud, which I love. And he has several variations of it. But basically the idea of it is that character is the ability to meet the demands of reality. And so, we look at what are the demands of reality and what does that really mean? And what I realized that meant for me was that I had all these ideas and lists of things that I wanted to do, but I didn't necessarily build my character to meet those demands. What I did instead was I actually developed a whole line of good intentions that became an imaginary self. So I say it like, it's a very silly example, but it seems to get the point across. So I was at Target one day a few years back, and I bought one of those like workout dice, and it's like basically a black octagon with yellow letters.
I hate those things.
And I have no idea why I picked it up, but I just did. I was like, I need something to motivate me. It's $2, And so it was like in the back of my car for like 6 months, and every time I saw it, it said, whatever, like 25 push-ups. And in my mind, crazy enough, every single time I saw that, it gave me like a little weird endorphin hit. And I actually imagined myself doing push-ups because the intention and the vision was there in my mind.
Yeah.
And then same thing, I brought it back in the house. I'm like, okay, I got to use this thing another 6 months. It's in my mudroom, and I see, 30 crunches. And in my mind, you still got me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah,
Keep
still
going.
got you.
Okay, sorry about that. I forgot to put my phone on airplane mode. My wife just called. So sorry.
If you want to take it, we're all about family. If you want
intentions of putting my phone on airplane mode. So basically, then it was like in my mind after a year of owning this thing and imagining myself working out, like I'm shredded in my mind, right? I'm like,
right.
Yeah.
I've been working out for a year and I've had an endorphin hit every day, imagining it. And I felt better about owning this thing and workout.
Yeah.
As stupid as that is, it made me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And I think about all the things the imagined actions that we have about who we are and who we want to be, and we imagine ourselves as that person, and we feel better about ourselves for it. But nobody in the real world can possibly see those things.
Yeah.
But there are realities. So am I living my reality of what I want to do, or am I going to meet the demands of real reality and actually turn my good intentions into actions? So I think the beginning step for any man is to say, man, who am I really versus who I want to be? And am I going to live my life just dreaming about it? Or am I actually going to take an action that is going to be actual steps to make a difference with the people that I love, that they can see for real? And so I do think that coming to grips honestly, is the first thing that every single one of us has to do, is to look in the mirror and really evaluate ourselves, because it's a whole lot easier to ignore or to run away.
Dude, I think you're hitting the nail on the head, obviously, because, obviously I'm a paragon of health and well-being. Not at all. And I also have that dice, and I also look at the do 10 burpees, and I laugh to myself and think, yeah, maybe. But I think a lot of, like what you're describing, is not just true in marriage. I think it's true of a lot of people who go to church on Sunday. Like,
Yep.
they're confronted with, I'm doing the activities, but it's not actually transforming from the inside out a different posture towards your neighbor, a different posture towards culture, a different posture towards your kids. And so what's that next step? So let's say a guy, a practical thing is take some time over the next few days and just dream about the reality. Like, what would you want to define your marriage? What words would you want to really push into your marriage and bring to life? What that reality, if you could have whatever you wanted. So what's the next thing? Now you have this reality in mind, and then you're like, okay, I know what marriage I want.
Yeah.
Now, how do you start to organize your life around that rather than looking, well, I got a ring on my finger, she's got a ring on her finger, and we habitate in the same location. We're married, and it's more of a business partnership than an actual marriage. So how do you move from defining the reality to actually living that reality?
Yeah, exactly. And you hit an awesome point, man. And a lot of times people feel like when they engage in these conversations about change, like they're just about to start drinking from a fire hose of information. Like, man, I can't even, like, I'm supposed to be all this stuff to my wife or all this stuff to my family. And how do I do that? So it's like almost like or maybe you failed before. I think a lot of people look at their failures, big or small, and they get out of the game. They're kind of sitting, woe is me, on the bench of family life and being out there and doing what they want to be doing. But I just think so many times, like, guys need to be like, dude, you're not alone. You're not alone in failure. You're not alone in feeling overwhelmed. Like, dude, we just got to get our butts off the bench and get back in the game, and be willing to just keep going even when we feel overwhelmed. And so I think it's finding that one thing you can do today. I mean, that might be literally as simple as saying, what could I text my wife? Or what could I say to my children today? Not think about it. Oh, I feel like I love you. But how can I actually put those into words right now? Send my wife a text that says, hey, by the way, have I told you lately that I appreciate when you do this or that? Or tell your kids, hey, have I told you lately how proud I am of you? I love you so much. Pray with your kids. Pray with your wife. Like just do it. And those little steps go a long way over time.
Well, and I think you hit on something when, even if you don't feel it, that's the time you should be doing it. Yeah. Because often your behavior will begin to manifest itself in the actual feelings that you desire. And going back to the workout illustration, I may not feel like working out, but if I engage in the behavior of just consistently doing a little workout every single day, that will transform my feelings about myself, my own self, my worth, my attitude, my posture, everything else. It'll begin to affect it. And so I think you're exactly right. Start with the small things. And I think you kind of nail, guys, where we like to go big or go home. And so we feel like we have to conquer the mountain today. And what you're talking about is like, man, just take one step today. Right, Bill?
Yeah, and I think as I'm struggling with talking today, I really do believe what I hear you saying, Matt, is the idea that, man, we need courage to step out. So this is actually the most courageous thing that men can do, because right now, as we hide away and kind of stuck in some closet, essentially, whether it's relationally or, emotionally, but for us to step out and go, no, I'm going to take the chance, because that's what God called me to, especially the minute when, when we all got married and remember seeing our spouses. It wasn't like, hey, I want to do? I just want to hide in a closet after I get married and never engage the heart of my wife. Like, we were ready. And so I think there's something valuable in saying, guys, praying Joshua 1:9 over you, that be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid, for the Lord's with you wherever we go. The idea that this is a godly thing, this attempt to speak into the heart of our kids, is what God wants.
And so He will produce fruit in it.
Yes, like, it is a guaranteed win.
Right.
Like if you guys want to know that there's a win, go and engage the heart of your family.
Right.
Like, God's not going to be like, oh, well, you wasted your time talking to your wife. Like, I can't believe you sent that text. Go for it.
Totally. Well, what's crazy is that, like, there's a guy, Josh Wilson. He's a Christian artist. And dude, he has this song called Dream Small. And it sounds so counter everything we think, because like you were saying, it's like we men want to climb these huge mountains. Like I love when you said it's like go big or go home. Like we get frustrated when our big dream isn't like just happening,
Yeah.
But it's like those little small things that, I mean, what is a big legacy is made up of small little things that made a difference in people's lives, and the lives of people that we love.
Yep.
And I love that song. I actually told him before, I think lyrically, like, that's like the best song of the past decade in Christian music, because nobody says that.
Yeah.
It's like, dream small. Think of how I can be epically doing the tiny little things, from speaking a word of encouragement to dancing with my wife in the kitchen. It's like, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the dream, and you realize that it takes some small steps. And let's say you're engaging in some of those small steps, understanding her love language and doing what makes a difference, whether it be helping out with the laundry or words of affirmation or just spending quality time. I'm sure at some point you got to have the hard conversation of a confession moment. And I'm sure for you and your wife, where you finally come before her, and if you want to share this, I would love to hear it. Like, what was that like when you finally had that conversation with her, saying, I've been singing about this, and I realize I have not been living it with you, and I need your forgiveness because we need a new point to start from. We need a new, a flag in the ground saying things are going to be different as much as we possibly can, and you need that confession. So what was that like for you to finally have that moment with your wife?
Yeah, it's interesting because, the song Lead Me really came out of her having a conversation with me that was very hard. I think the first step of courage for me was being able to listen. You mentioned understanding your wife and listening. Yeah. And I think I think that was the first step for me. Number one was hearing her heart and being willing to not defend myself, but like actually just let her speak, and let, even when it hurt, even when I wanted to say, hey, look at all the amazing things I've done. I mean, are you noticing? It's like to be able to hear what the hurt was with no.
Do you not see the statues behind my shoulder?
Yeah.
Do you not see those? Other people really like what I do. Why don't you get on board with them? All right, sweetheart. That didn't go over well? Is that what I hear you saying?
It's actually funny. It's actually funny here in my office. Like, I didn't have anything up. My wife was like, you need to respect the people who loved you enough to invest in your career, and you need to be proud of those. She's like, you need to put them out.
Look at that. The nonchalant Dove Awards in the background. That's awesome.
So anyway, so I love what you say about listening to your wife. So continue on.
Yeah, just hearing her heart and being willing to just shut my mouth and stop talking, and it's still so hard for me. But so it started with hearing her, and it's funny because then I wrote the song "Lead Me" after probably one of those most difficult conversations we've ever had, and it's funny because people will go up to her and be like, "Hey, how does it feel that Matt wrote this song for you?" And she'd be like, well, you want to know the truth? She's like, I didn't really just want a song. I wanted action. And she said, I told him 1,000 times before and he didn't listen. So actually, it was kind of painful. And I get it. It's like, she wanted the real deal. Again, she wanted action. And so the funny part is that when I made the decision and I knew God was calling me to step out of the band, it probably actually was harder for her than it was for me, because I don't know if she realized it would go that far. She was like, wait, are you sure this is our livelihood? This is our family, our community. And I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that's what I was called to. And
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. You're great. Go for it. Well, no, it when you said hear her heart, I love in the book when you started playing the song for her at the kitchen table, and she was like, okay, thanks. And I was like, wow, that sounds like my wife. Like, my wife's name is Sarah, and I'm like, is your Sarah my Sarah? Because it just felt like I'm going to try this big, illustrious thing, and you're going to fall back in love with me, and we're going to run through the field. And it was like, all right, can you unload the dishwasher? Sorry, but that just made me think about that. So hearing her heart,
you guys mentioned too, love language. We want to be loved in the way, or we want to love others in the way that we feel loved.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
a huge part of it too. Like, you know, I actually, funny enough, like, well, I love my spaces to be clean and organized, and I can get OCD about that, and I want to love my wife. Like, I think if I like deep clean the house, she's gonna be like, "Oh, thank you so much, wow," but like that's not her love language. I'm doing that for
Yeah.
me.
Right.
She feels loved when I let it go. And I value relationship and time with her more than cleaning up. And that's hard for me. And so like what's that thing in your life that you're actually doing, saying you're loving somebody else when you're really just loving yourself? What do you actually have to give up to love somebody in their language? I mean, that's the big question we need to be
that's
asking
good.
ourselves.
That's really good. Yeah, I mean, just listening to your spouse. So what I'm getting from today is listen to your spouse, find out their language that they feel loved in, have the courage to speak life, and let it go. It's almost like it is truly serving them 100%, and then knowing that, again, success is as we serve our spouses, God will honor that. Especially, guys, if your spouse is pursuing the heart of Jesus and you don't know how to start this is a great way to do it. Just start listening and then serving and letting God do the work, the fruit in the life of that, to go, you guys, she's seeing it. It's not going to return void.
Right.
So I love it.
Well, I think with on top of that, patience. We live in an instant culture, and so I know for myself, there's times that I've gone to a men's retreat or I've gone to a marriage retreat and I come back and I'm all like gung-ho and I do it for like a day or 5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this should change everything. And it doesn't, because there's a long history that needs to be unpacked. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place.
Yeah.
And that can take weeks and even months and even years.
Yeah.
And and again, we looked at Jesus, and Jesus passionately loved people that he knew were going to betray him, to leave him, but he didn't stop loving them.
Yeah.
Because he knew in the end, it was the act of loving which was where the life was, not the reciprocation of that love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that's an important thing to remember too. Like, guys, don't do this. And I'm going to go here. There are too many times that we will take our wives out on a date because we want the night to end a certain way. Does that make sense?
I don't know what you mean.
No,
Is that
I'm not
just
sure.
me?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Could you flesh that out a little bit for us? We like to call that the back rub attempt. That's all that is.
And so we always have these ulterior motives, and I think there's something about getting to the place where we're finally just purely saying, it doesn't matter if anything comes of this. Like we're just going to go out and hang out together. The house is a mess. It drives me crazy. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard. Let's just go get a burger someplace or go for a walk or something, without any expectations of anything in return.
Yeah.
And I think our wives are wise enough to know when it's from a pure heart that these things are happening, or when it's a bait and switch.
Yeah.
And they're done with the bait and switch.
Yeah.
So patience. Have some patience with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd always tell people that, man. People are like, oh, what changed? Like, I bet, man, you wrote that song, and I bet everything was great. It's like, no, man. It's like years and years, and still, we're all on the journey, right?
Yeah. So in the midst of that, I know there's also other excuses that come up in people's lives of well, it's just so busy, or there's so much crisis. Now, again, knowing about Bowens Heart, if you guys have a chance, check out. What's the handle on that? I don't understand the Twitter machine, but is it bowensheart.org or .com, or what is that?
Yeah, .com. We have a bowensheart.com if people want to check out our son's story. Our third child has severe heart disease. He only has half a heart, called HLHS. And, we're on that journey. He's had 3 open heart surgeries.
Yeah.
The last one was in 2019. We actually had so many families reaching out to us over the years, asking us, how do we walk through this? What's it like? How does it affect your marriage? How does it affect your family?
Yeah.
And so we actually made a documentary in 2019. We finished it last year, called Bowens Heart. That we've done a few movie premieres, and we're actually in the middle of working on a distribution deal right now, so people should be able to stream that pretty soon.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the question I had with that is, man, we've all got excuses and crisis that's going to constantly come up.
Right.
But how have you found ways to be successful in communicating and connecting with your spouse, even in the midst of those crisis moments?
Yeah, we fumbled it a lot. The first time around with Bowens surgeries, our grief really started to pull us apart. You know, I was angry with Sarah because she wouldn't leave Bowen's bedside for like 5 minutes just to be my wife. I needed a friend. She was mad at me because she was like, well, how can you go away for 2 hours and have a walk and journal, you know? And so we were like at each other instead of allowing it to bring us together, really. And so this last time we finally learned how to put aside our own selfishness and to look at how each other were grieving and not be angry about the way that the pain that we were each feeling, but being able to actually move closer to one another in it by hearing each other and validating one another. And so,
awesome.
You know, I think what's most interesting about Bowen's story is, you know, and it's like this with any crisis, we had doctors when we were pregnant with him tell us that the easy thing to do for our family, the best thing, some even said it was like the kind thing to do, would be to end the pregnancy. But I will tell you that receiving Bowen as a gift from God, choosing him to be a part of our family, has been the single most character building exercise of faith in our life. And
so cool.
God can take a broken heart and use it to make a family whole. Only he can do that. So whatever it is that you're facing, God can use your pain as a means to healing if you press in. But that takes being willing to accept that it's a really painful process and not running away from it, but pressing in instead.
I had a buddy of mine. He's a mentor. He's a few years ahead of me in the ministry. And he would share something a few years ago when him and his wife were going through a difficult time. And it was kind of his mantra, and I think it applies to this. And it's the fallacy that we believe that marriage is there to make us happy. And he goes, marriage is there to make us holy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about. Like we have a culture that is in love with comfort and happiness.
Yeah.
And we forget that God is passionate about holiness and the character and the refinement and the pruning that takes place, not in the warm fuzzies, but in the hard and in the trenches and in the crisis stuff.
Yeah.
And so, man, I think that's fantastic. And so I would encourage you guys, if you haven't had a chance yet, go out and get the book Lead Me, and check that out. It's fantastic. Matt, I could talk for another hour with you, and I appreciate your time, and I really look forward to having another podcast with you because it was fantastic. So if you could share one final thought with our group that listens in, what would you share with them, Matt?
Yeah, well, you know, we started this podcast by talking about, hey, you know, if somebody's looking to lead their family or hasn't started yet, where do they start? And I just want to share an encouraging, really quick story. You know, my grandfather was an orphan. He, you know, lived his whole life basically just trying to find where he belonged. Ended up being an architect and an artist and built his home, had 3 beautiful kids. And at the age of 49, his wife dragged him into a church, and he was so ticked off about it. He was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life. I'm never going back. And, you know, he ended up going again, and God got a hold of his heart. And at 49 years old, he received the Lord.
Amen.
And, you know, there was a really, and he, you know, he claimed the promise that you and your household will be saved. And sure enough, all 3 of his grown children came to know the Lord. All of his grandchildren have come to the Lord. And, you know, he has grandchildren who are missionaries. And the one cool story that I love about him so much is that at his funeral, a woman stood up and said, my life was miserable. My husband was wheelchair bound. He was an atheist. I wanted nothing more than to have a Christian family, and he wouldn't hear anything of it. But in the blizzard of 1978, I was stuck at home on a Sunday morning, and I tried to turn on the radio to hear the sermon that they were going to broadcast, and nothing was coming through. And slowly the static turned in to signal, and she started hearing the pastor preach. What she didn't know is that my grandfather, because the signal was out at the radio station, climbed on top of the church to hold up the antenna during the middle of the blizzard
What?
so that
No
other people could hear
way.
the message that changed his life.
Wow.
And what my grandfather didn't know was that in that woman's home that morning, as he held up the antenna so that people could hear the message, on the other side of the wall, her atheist husband was sitting in his wheelchair, listening through the wall to the sermon, and God got a hold of his heart that day, and he received the Lord. And that woman said, that day, because Eddie held that antenna up in the blizzard of 78, my whole family legacy was changed. And so we don't know what it is that we do, simple thing like holding an antenna up in a blizzard. And I look at like culture, and I'm like, we are in a blizzard in culture. We are in a whiteout, man. People can't see right from wrong and wrong from right. But man, we can do something simple as finding our way to just hold the antenna. We have no idea what a ripple will make in the world.
That is a fantastic,
incredible
story.
Why didn't you put that in the book?
I know, right?
I guess you got to save some.
I know.
No. That's his next book.
That's his next book.
Hold the antenna.
Hold the antenna. There you go.
We need armor bearers in our lives,
go.
and that's something you referenced earlier. You need a community of guys that you can be transparent with, that encourage you on that journey.
Yeah.
And we all need someone to be willing to hold up the antenna, even though there's a whiteout and no one knows where to go.
You know, this is encouraging because guys who are listening right now, remember, you're not alone. We would love to connect with you. We'd love to help you find this in your journey, because what you do matters for your legacy and for all those who will come after you. And so, love it, Matt. Thank you so much for today.
So, without further ado, our favorite way to end these podcasts. Bill, it's time now for the Fast Five.
That's our intro for Fast Five. So,
because we have a low production.
So here we go, Matt. Here we go. If you had to live in a decade, which would you choose and why?
Man, the 80s. The 80s.
Yes. Don't stop believing.
I'd go see Sting and the Police, man, when they were, and then their heyday.
So good. So,
speaking of the 80s, what was your music genre that you loved to listen to in the 80s?
Man, I did. I loved Sting and the Police. I loved Genesis, and then Phil Collins. That was kind of that hybrid of like real organic rock mixed with pop.
Yeah.
Love it.
I can feel it calling in the air. Listen, I still put all the. My kids hate it. I take all the windows and put them down, and I just turn it way up. It's amazing. It's so good. So, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so what's your favorite Bible verse?
Oh man, I always look James 1:5, man. Like, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, and God will give it to him, without reproach. I love that because I need it, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Promise that God will give it to us if we ask in faith.
So you're saying just hold on to the promises? Okay, I'll move on. There it is.
Hold on to the promises.
Yes. That's awesome. Hey, I'm gonna lead you into this next song or in this next question. So,
so bad. Stop.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying. I'm such a jerk.
I love you, Bill.
Okay, good. Okay, if you could be a character in a movie, who would it be and why?
Oh man, maybe. Oh, you even sent me these questions ahead of time. I totally could have come up with this.
I know, it's okay.
I'm gonna say. I love Braveheart.
Yeah.
That would probably be the role that I would play. I wouldn't want my guts torn out, but I'd love to feel that passion.
Yeah. All men die. All men die. Not all men really live. I love it. Yep. So, all right. What toppings would you put on your worst enemy's pizza?
Oh man, just the classic. Got to be the anchovies, man. But then I like them, so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh man. Okay.
Maybe chocolate covered bugs.
Oh,
nice.
Like the crickets. Yeah, that could work too.
Yeah. Here, I got a treat for you.
Oh gosh. All right. I think I know this other. I think I know the answer to the next question, but I'm going to ask anyways. If you had to pick one color your shirts could be forever, what would it be?
Yeah, baby.
Black.
Back in black.
I remember,
Black makes you look skinnier.
yeah, exactly. That's why I
Black
wear.
is classic. It's rock and roll, you know.
Yep. That's awesome. Okay.
Love it.
Bonus
Can't
question.
tell
Go.
if it's the same shirt I've been wearing.
Exactly.
10
Laundry.
years.
Laundry day is easier.
Love it.
Travis,
All right, final
go
question. Where are you located, by the way? Where's home for you?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Okay. So maybe you'll have.
To be Ohio.
You might have this answer.
You might know this one. So we have an ongoing argument that the superior donut in the land of Donutville is the apple cider donut, fresh from the orchard. And so the question really is, would you rather have an apple cider donut or any other donut? And our friendship is on the line, just so you know.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, we have some great donuts here, man. We've got Ellie's Donuts. We've got Five Daughters Donuts, which are like nationally famous. But I gotta say, there's almost nothing as good as having a fresh cider donut.
Oh,
Yes.
we can remain friends. We can remain friends. The friendship
that's
is restored.
You just can't really beat that when you're out at Fall Festival. I mean,
So good.
Some cider and some cider donuts, and they're warm, and the world is better.
it's amazing, man. I'm
Matt,
all in.
thank you so much for your time. Kyle, as always, thank you for being production today and producing a great little video.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Kyle.
all your time.
No,
Any
my
takeaways
pleasure.
from you, Kyle, that you were listening in while we were doing this?
So where in Ohio are you from?
Actually grew up in Toledo and then lived in Perrysburg until about 5 years ago.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm from Lancaster originally, so I just asked.
All right.
Nice,
Oh, yeah.
nice.
Nice, man. Not too far away.
No.
Are you a Steelers fan?
I'm a Cowboy fan.
Yeah, Cowboys. Yeah.
I was a Cowboy fan in Ohio before I moved here, by the way.
He saw the light way early and he ran down. So, hey guys, check out Matt
Oh,
at.
okay. You're from Lancaster, Ohio. Sorry, I thought you meant Lancaster, PA. Which
No,
is
Lancaster,
close
Ohio.
by, but
I
I
guess
gotcha.
that's
I
true.
gotcha.
Yeah. Guys, check out Matt. He's available. Actually, are you still traveling for family life marriage conferences? You'll be at some of those, correct? And
Yeah,
you guys,
I'm coming up in Portland in a couple weeks.
awesome.
Yep.
And then MattHammitt.com. That's Matt with 2 T's, Hammitt with 2 T's .com. Check out his stuff. He's available for booking, speaking, incredible speaker, incredible musician, and go and purchase his Lead Me book. We'll have the link available in the comments area, so please go and check that out. You are not going to be disappointed in that.
And
Matt.
if you have a chance, check out the movie when it gets out and is distributed. I'm sure it's going to be impactful for you guys. Anyways, God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for checking us out. And thanks, Matt, for your time. I appreciate it.
Matt, thanks a lot. We got to have you back on, brother.
Awesome.
You are a
Thank you,
blessing.
guys.
All right. God
Take
bless
it
you
easy.
all.
Absolutely.
All right, God bless.
Love
Bye.
you.
Thanks for listening to the Known Legacy Podcast. We'd love to hear from you, so email us your questions or comments to info@knownlegacy.org.
Matt, you still